we're still in a government shutdown, and we need to talk about this at this point because now we are, I believe, we are, as of today, 17 days into the government shutdown. That makes it the third largest, longest government shutdown in history. The first one being 35 days under President Trump's first presidency. That was the longest government shutdown. And so it's important for us to, so we're kind of like halfway there. But it's important for us to talk about it now because initially I did a lot of writing on this and a lot of my colleagues have done the same, that we didn't expect a large impact from the shutdown. The thesis there was that the shutdown would most likely be resolved in shorter order. And in fact, it hasn't been resolved yet. So we need to take a step back. We need to decide, do we need to sharpen our pencils here and look back at that and start to figure out what the impact of this shutdown, should it continue to go on, have on the economy? Let's take a step back and talk about the economy. Economy is very healthy. Just last night, I sat with some of the smartest economists out there, and we all agreed that the economy is in pretty good shape right now. We expect a little challenge in the fourth quarter, but we expect the year to end up very positively, actually much higher than we anticipated earlier in the year. But that said, if you've been paying attention and watching my videos and reading the notes that we put out, you see that there are some cracks building on under the surface, right? There are some challenges. We see challenges in the credit market. Most importantly, though, we have seen some challenges in the labor market. The labor market right now is clearly showing some signs of weakness. Let's take another step back. Why is the labor market so important? Well, let's get to basics. You need a job to get your money to buy stuff. When you buy stuff, consumption, that powers the economy. 2/3 of the economy is powered by consumption. And most of us at least, need to work and get a paycheck to buy things which power the economy forward. So if the labor market falls apart, you can almost count on the fact that the economy is going to fall apart. So we're always very keen watching the labor market. And that happens to also be why the labor market and the health of the labor market happens to be one half of the Fed's so-called dual mandate. They have to manage inflation and they have to ensure full employment. Now, where are we with employment? Well, the unemployment rate is slightly higher than the natural rate of unemployment, which is not good. That means it's slightly worse off than we'd like to see it. Additionally, we track the monthly numbers, right? The non-farm payroll numbers. And that's a government number that tells you how many non-farm jobs were added to the economy or taken out every month. We just had 4 months in a row of very, very low downward trending numbers. And we had a non-government report from ADP that actually showed 2 months in a row of job declines. So they're jobs that are being lost in the economy. We just missed the last report because of the government shutdown. So we don't really even know what happened last month. However, we expect that the trend is continuing in a downward fashion. Now, I want to be clear here. We're not concerned that the economy is going to implode on itself. But when we see the pattern, we're able to deal with it before it becomes too late. And we are seeing that pattern. And the Fed is certainly making moves because of that pattern. We've seen a shift in the Fed. And because of the very fact that we are seeing these declining numbers, more and more Fed governors are voting in favor for more rate cuts. But that said, that's just a side effect. We don't want to see the economy weaken. And so that brings me to one of the key challenges that we will have in this shutdown if it goes on for longer. Clearly, there are folks that were initially furloughed, but now the president and the White House is talking about permanent layoffs. We heard a number of agencies come out this week say that they're preparing for layoffs. I think I saw one from the Department of Interior the other day. I saw Treasury. I saw a bunch of the larger, even the larger ones like Treasury announcing permanent layoffs. Now, earlier this year, we had a little bit of scare with Doge where there were a lot of layoffs being planned, and there were layoffs that actually happened. They weren't as severe as we expected. So we we dodged that bullet, so to speak. But in this case, there's a real possibility that there might be some layoffs. And if I showed you the numbers, you would see that, a small amount of layoffs can move the needle fairly substantially. And so if we're concerned about the labor market, and we believe that the labor market is in a weak state right now, one of my favorite words, tenterhooks. You can look it up. It's got a very funny spelling, but you can check me on that, tenterhooks. The labor market is certainly on tenterhooks. And if the labor market is pushed to a point where it is in a panic mode, then we could have some real significant impacts on GDP. And I know that there are a lot of my colleagues out there that have these models that show how much, what the cost will be to GDP based on how long the shutdown happens. I don't subscribe to that just yet, but I do believe at a high level, the longer this goes on, the more potential there will certainly be to economic growth. So we have to watch that very, very carefully. Market's holding up. Market's not panicking about that just yet, only because the market knows from history that generally speaking, these things are resolved. But if we look at both sides, I believe there were so far 10 votes to reopen the government for a continued resolution, and 10 of them failed. And it doesn't look like there's much movement going on at this point. Now, hopefully things will change in the next couple of days. But the message here is that we need to start watching these types of things. The labor market, certainly, challenge there is we don't have granularity on the labor market. Those are numbers that we can follow weekly. And those numbers that we get weekly are now temporarily halted because of the shutdown. So we're going to have to look for all other ways, other kinds of sources to try to figure this out. We have to watch news reports. We have to see what's actually happening. We have to follow, private numbers and things like that. And there are some of them out there. I don't think that they're as reliable as the government numbers, but we're watching them. And we're certainly going to be reporting those to you in the days to come. So you're going to have to check back for that. I guarantee you're going to hear us talking a lot more about the labor market and this shutdown in days ahead. We just crossed these, let's call it the halfway point almost, to that longest shutdown. Taking a step back, it's also, we cannot ignore the fact that the White House and the administration wants to put a lot of pressure on the Fed to try to get them to more aggressively cut rates. Not getting involved in the political discussion. You all know my rules. Policy, not politics. I don't get involved in that, but there's certainly politics going on here. There's certainly going to be pressure on the Fed to cut rates, and the president knows that, especially if he's threatening permanent layoffs. He's going to put extra pressure on the Fed. We see it. We see it already. We see the markets responding to that. We see how the probabilities for more rate cuts has gone up. We see the front end of the yield curve. We see yields coming in. So those expectations are starting to build. That means other people besides us in this room having this conversation are also concerned about the labor market. Should this shutdown continue? So I want to urge you to check back with us frequently, because we're going to be talking about this a lot more. Again, 17 days in, no resolution. And hopefully we see a resolution soon. I'm sure we would all like to see that, get back to business here. We are having a great year for our economy, and we have great prospects going forward. Hopefully the labor market holds up in here. So check back with us frequently at this point, because we're going to be posting on this a lot. Folks, if you like this kind of content, hit like and subscribe. We put a lot of content out every single day, and you really need to pay attention in these kinds of markets. And with that, folks, I want to remind you that I don't make these moves. I just make sense of them. We'll see you next week for more Truth Bombs. Thanks for checking in with Wall Street Truth Bombs. Remember, we drop them here before the market figures them out.